Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of 50 Conversations with 50 Strangers, which is really we're nearing now 100 conversations. This thing has caught on like wildfire. I love it. I love that I'm inviting some people in that have been kind to me on Facebook or different things like that. People who are finding out about us through friends and inviting and asking if they can be a part of it. Spouses are saying that, "Are you interviewed my wife or husband and can I be a part of it?" So I love this idea of what's happening and how contagious it is to just hold the space for somebody to be able to share with people who they are. This show is now being sponsored by the Mosaic, the book that's right behind me, which was the inspiration really behind this whole thing, which is the story. And the Mosaic's a story about a boy who loses his parents 2 years apart on the same day. And when he asks the adults where his parents are, they tell him they're in a place called heaven. And so the boy sets out in search of that place called heaven. And the people he meets along the way are not the people he expects to meet. They're not the clergymen or the medicine people or the shamans or the yogis and the priests and the ministers and the rabbis. They're common ordinary people. And when he sits with those common ordinary people, in 100% of the cases, what he sees is the people he first saw when he came up to see them is not at all who they are. He sees them completely different after he has a conversation with them. And so after I finished writing that book, the book itself invited me to go out on the road and sit on street corners and bookstores and corporate boardrooms, in hospitals and prisons and homeless shelters, and sit with people and get a sense of what they would say to the world if they had a chance to say something. And just as I was about to happen, COVID came and said, "Not on my watch," and postponed that trip for me a little bit. So I decided to go viral and do this. And 50 conversations I thought would take a while, but within a week and a half, 50 people I'd had conversations with 50 people. And now it's been about 40 days and I'm in the 80s. So I just want to let this continue to go. Hopefully millions of people would come on. So that's the paid advertisement for the Mosaic. None of that matters right now because I have the honor of introducing to you Marija Minic. I think I said her name right. She'll tell me if I haven't. Minic. Marija Minic. Marija Minic, welcome to 50 Conversations. What a joy to have you here. Your beautiful
Thank
smiling
you so
face.
much. It's a joy to be here.
It makes me happy already. Tell us, first of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well. I'm actually out here in a trailer in Needles, California, because I'm a field biologist, and yeah, my current project happens to be out here, and yeah, today's my day off, and this is the perfect time to have this conversation. So yeah, doing well.
Fa- Fabulous. And Needles, California, if I'm not mistaken, is in the middle of the desert, and it is hot as can be out there right now, probably, right?
It sure is, and but we have the blessing of having the Colorado River at my doorstep, so it's perfect to cool off in.
Fabulous. That makes it a whole lot different because we're going through, I mean, we're little wussies in California because of how nice our weather is, but we're going through a heat wave right now in California. So Needles, what's the temperature gotten to the last few
Oh
days?
my gosh, it's going to be 120 today. So it's
Wow.
going to be a
Yeah.
major heat wave here too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we are having a conversation in the middle of the desert in a major heat wave with a beautiful river right by our side. I love that. Um, Tell us who you are and what's important to you.
Well, as I said, I'm a field biologist. So protecting conservation of animals and plant life in our ever increasingly climate changed world is very, very important to me. It's become my life's mission. Also, I'm a spiritual practitioner. So um, doing the inner work definitely helps me with my external work because my inner world is just, or my outer world is a reflection of my inner world. So I do love the connection between spirituality and science. And, you know, a lot of people say they're two separate things, but everything's connected. So yeah, it's my life mission to become the best person I can be and help the planet as best I can.
Um, I listeners, if you already hear what I hear, what a delightful person to have a conversation with this morning,
Thank
right?
you.
Um, why is saving the environment so important to you?
Well, I think, you know, for the last few hundred years, probably since the Industrial Revolution, um, because automation has caused industry to be able to produce. Um, in order to produce, unfortunately, resources from the earth must be extracted, which really is exploit. So as a result, we've messed up the balance on the planet. Trees and the plant kingdom uh, produce oxygen as a waste product, yet oxygen is vital, prana is vital to our existence in the animal kingdom. So there's supposed to be an exact balance between the two. You know, we excrete carbon dioxide as our waste products, but the trees and the plant kingdom need the carbon dioxide. So we're supposed to be in balance, and it's a perfect symbiotic relationship between the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom. Unfortunately, because you know the resources have been exploited, there's an imbalance, and the people who are, you know, exploiting to make money, and greed, um, don't see it that way. So it takes a smaller, hopefully growing larger and larger percentage of us to wake people up and see that this isn't the way to go. It's an unsustainable way to live. So we're just here to show that there is a better way. We need to restore balance within ourselves and our external world.
So, for those of you who are listening, how many of you realized as clearly as Maria just said that, how important the plant world, the tree and the forestation world is? I mean, we hear it all the time, but she just said it very succinctly and very beautifully of how clearly and easy it is when the world was created that one thing would help the um, waste of one product would be the inhalation of the other. It's like a beautiful inhalation and exhalation of the world itself. That what we exhale and give away is what the plant kingdom needs, and what the plant kingdom exhales and gives away is what we need. And when that balance gets out of balance, then we can tear down the trees and do whatever we do in order to build greater wealth and prosperity for our people, but our people won't be here because they won't have that which the plants and animal kingdom and plant kingdom give us. So I just learned something beautifully simple in the way you described that. So thank you for sharing that with me.
Really, it just boils down to balance. Everything requires balance. The earth requires a balance. We require balances. You know, being the extreme on either end doesn't work. Being too much or too little, you know, rajas with an excessive energy, or tamas with an inertia, no energy, um, that doesn't work. We need to find the balance. Or as the Buddhists,
I just lost you. I just lost you for a moment. Can you hear me now?
let me turn off this air conditioning. It's really
Okay.
loud. One
Okay.
second. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I lost you for a minute. You went out. It's like you froze for a second there. So you were talking about the balance between too much energy and too little energy, Rajas and Tamas. But you didn't finish the sentence.
What, say that one more time. Sorry.
You were talking about the balance between things, and you were saying
Yeah.
I lost you at the point where you were talking about Rajas and
Yeah.
Tamas.
I just, yeah. It's it's essential to achieve a balance, whether it's the external world or our internal world. That's the key to having sort of homeostasis, the ability to function at optimal levels is to achieve a balance, whether it's externally or internally.
So I want to ask the listeners right now to just mentally take note. Where are you in balance in your life, and where are you out of balance in your life? And are you out of balance? And if you are out of balance, how will you go about bringing yourself back to balance? Because so many of us get running so quickly that we stop thinking about those things and we just continue. And what it would look like to actually return yourself daily, momently, uh, back to the state of complete inner and outer balance, complete inhalation, exhalation. Just think of it in your breath system. Your breath system, if you were in out of balance with your breath, you don't breathe in and a certain length and breathe out a certain length. It's your body's perfectly in balance with the breath process. And why wouldn't we maintain that balance through, right? So,
Absolutely.
what makes you happy?
Well, yeah, if I can achieve a balance in everything, in life, in, my work, amongst friends and family, that makes me happy. It's achieving a bliss state. And when you get to that level of balance, you can achieve that bliss state. And as one of my teachers calls it, being happy for no reason,
I love that.
not having any external thing to make you happy, just being completely happy from within, achieving that bliss state. That's where it's at.
I love that. Let's dive into that because I think there's some people that are listening that are so intoxicated by that idea but have no idea what that means. What does that mean to be happy for no reason?
Well, it takes a lot of internal work to get there, because we're so conditioned by our upbringings. You got to study hard, you got to achieve, these are all external things. So we're all conditioned from the get-go, unless you have, enlightened parents, to believe that it's the external world that makes us happy, the achievements, you know, all all of those things. And they're only temporary because the external world is temporary. It comes and goes. The expression, this too shall pass, it doesn't just apply to the good things, it applies to the bad things as well. But it's all temporary. So by placing your happiness on the external world, it's just gonna go away eventually. And so that's not the way to achieve happiness for no reason. But when you connect with the internal, your connection to the ever changing, the infinite, whatever you want to call it. Some people call it God, some people call it the divine, but connecting with that self, that power, that's when that doesn't change ever. It's infinite and it's so powerful, and that's what gives you happiness for no reason.
I love that, happiness for no reason. I'm gonna remember that. So because it's so beautiful, really, when you think about it, and it describes a state of being that does not depend on anything else, which is what's really I love. If money weren't important to you, what would you be doing?
Well, I had something happen to me 10 years ago, that I was working. I'm currently an independent contractor, so I just take projects, and then when I have time off between projects, I have a life outside of work. Like I travel, I do volunteer work, take classes and retreats, to grow it in my inner self. So in order for that to be able to have happened 10 years ago, uh, synchronicity played a role in my life. I found something that my boss at the time should not have left in the office paper recycling. It was an invoice for what he was billing us out for to the clients for doing our biological survey work.
Yeah.
And then I compared that to what he was paying us, and I'm like, my goodness, he's really pocketing a lot. We're the ones spending 10 hours a day doing all this field work in the desert, and he's taking so much. And I was like, man, there's got to be a way for me to maybe not earn that much, but cut out the middleman and earn more, get paid properly for my work. And boom, 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 doors started opening. I met somebody from U.S. Fish and Wildlife and another from BLM, and I started doing independent contracting work. So more money was going to me. So the trade-off was, I didn't always know where the next gig was coming from, but the freedom to have a great life outside of work was the payoff, and it really, really, really was the best decision I ever made. So I am very financially satisfied. Let's say I'm not rich by any means, but I'm sufficient, and I'm really happy about that. But if money wasn't an object, I would fund all sorts of projects, especially in the developing world, to help the environmental movement and ecological projects, because a lot of the ecosystems in those developing countries, like such as the Amazon or the Congo River Basin or any of those really precious ecosystems, they're grossly underfunded because either their governments don't care, or they're corrupt, or they just don't have the money. So I would definitely put my resources into projects like that are worthwhile, that are not currently receiving the funding that they should.
Love that. So even if money were no object, you would continue in the field that you're in, just supporting
Oh,
that, growing that,
absolutely.
which is beautiful.
Absolutely.
So, and I want people who are listening again to ask themselves, become a part of the conversation. So, in the questions that I ask Marija, ask yourself those questions. Do you love what you're doing so much that if money were not an issue, if you had all the money in the world, you would just continue to do it and grow that in ways that you can't grow it right now? Or would you change? Would you stop doing what you're doing and do something else? Because you want to find, like, where is your passion is really what I'm asking. And are you living your passion, and can you live your passion, and how would that be for you to live your passion? Those are all things that I'm asking you as a listener to engage in the conversation, because Marija is so beautifully showing where her passion lies, that it's right where she is. And
We really all have a gift to give. You know, people who haven't done the inner work, who feel like, well, I have nothing to give. Absolutely not true. We all have a gift, and we need to tap into that. By doing inner work, we can tap into that, find out what that is, and give that gift to the universe,
yeah,
because that's what we're here for. Find your purpose, tap into that, and just do it.
yeah. I think it was Mark Twain that said the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you discover why you were born, the purpose behind what you were born. And
Absolutely.
those so many
Absolutely.
people go through life without discovering that second reason, that
Yeah.
second day. And so let's go into I suck at lightning rounds, but let's just go into them to try it, because I'm
Sure.
always too inquisitive to make it go very quickly. But let's just go into that phase
Let's
of
do
what
it.
we're doing. Okay. Are you a dog or a cat person?
Hmm. I love them both. I don't have a preference for either. Both have their good qualities, and both have their, not as desirable qualities. Cats are independent, dogs are more dependent, but dogs are more loving. Cats are less needy, so they
Yeah.
both have their good qualities.
Okay, perfect. Coffee or tea?
Um, well, I did like both equally at one point, but I definitely prefer tea now. I've kind of cut coffee a little bit more out of my diet, out of my life, just because the caffeine is becoming more and more intense. And doing more and more inner work, I already have natural good energy levels. So um, I do love a good matcha or a good herbal tea. So yeah,
Love
tea
it.
is the
Love it.
answer.
I think I know the answer from what you just said, but junk food or organic?
Oh, hands down organic. I mean, not just on the effect that it has on our you know internally, um, but it's just much much better for the planet. I mean, no pesticides, no herbicides. Right there, you're not adding to the poison of the planet. In 2018, 2 years ago, I visited, I was in Indonesia and I visited the island of Borneo. And I got to visit an area where orangutans were protected. And as beautiful as it was to see, these genetically close relatives of ours, as soon as you left the area that was protected for them, the whole area was completely leveled. All the trees gone to make room for palm oil plantations.
Wow.
And that is what's used in junk food and a lot of, mainstream candy bars and toxic soaps and stuff. So junk food not only harms us internally, but it harms the planet as well.
Wow. That must have been wild to see that so poignantly, one so close to each other.
It was really disturbing, but it also made me firmer in my mission to,
Yeah.
We got to do something about this. Yeah.
I understand. Conservative or liberal?
Well, I was born and raised in Toronto, so I'm actually Canadian, and I'm working here in the United States on a TN visa under the NAFTA agreement. So I can't even vote in this country. In Canada, we have more political parties than just conservative and liberal. I'm a Green Party supporter, so I guess that would fall under more of a liberal spectrum. But my number one, hands down issue is the environment and climate change. So I'm a Green Party supporter. So I guess if that makes me more liberal than conservative, then that's what it is.
Yeah, yeah. Exercise or not exercise?
Oh, bring on exercise. I mean, not everyone likes to run. Not everyone likes to do martial arts. Some people love yoga. Some people love hiking. Find what it is that you really like and that what resonates with your body, and just do it. It keeps you active both physically and mentally, and it's just so good for you. So exercise, hands down.
Fabulous. Would you say you're a person that's in the box or someone that's out of the box?
Well, it really it depends, because compared to the average person, I would say I'm out of the box. But within my communities, like for example, the yoga community, the spiritual community, the environmental community, all of these communities that I'm a part of, I feel like collectively we're all on the same mission, and we're doing everything that we can to further, whether it's spiritual growth or environmental conservation. We're more working together. I don't know if, yeah, let's say out of the box.
Okay. What you say brings up an interesting question, because I've seen it over the course of a lot of these conversations, and I love the way your mind thinks, and I love the way you approach life. So I'd be interested in hearing your response to this. Oftentimes when people come out of the box, they just jump into another box.
Sure.
It's a box of people who think differently than the people they were thinking in, but it's still a box.
Sure.
It's still a silo of like-minded people who believe a certain thing.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm noticing in the world that we're living in, that, and it's one of my questions of, are you a leader or a follower, which we'll jump to, is that a lot of people want to be leaders.
Yes.
And want to lead people from one box to another.
Yeah.
But don't necessarily have the strength to lead when they see in the new box that they're in things that are being done that aren't quite right. They don't necessarily have the strength to go against the momentum of that box.
Right.
To try and stand up to that box, and they follow along in that. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. So I think the key is you just always have to be on the quest for improvement. Okay. Because stagnating doesn't work. You have to be with the ebb and flow of the needs of what you're doing, and constantly be striving for improvement and how to get better. And so the only way to do that is to think outside of conventional thinking and just constantly think, well, what can I do? What can be done to improve this? And so that requires out of the box thinking, constant out of the box thinking. For example, in my field of environmental conservation, a lot of people think science, 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 only science. But we need to combine science with spirituality and think not just in such a rigid linear fashion. And that's really the only way you can improve and make things better. You just have to be striving for improvement. So
Years ago, I was recruited by a group of people. It's an organization called Vistage, and Vistage wanted to have people who were CEOs of companies lead groups of CEOs. And I decided in the end not to do it. But one of their bylines I just loved. And it was, when people come to us, they assume that we are going to answer their questions. But
yes,
instead, what we actually do is we question their answers. And
absolutely.
I think that I thought you might resonate with that. And I think that
Absolutely. That's so wonderful because we really have to be open to constructive criticism or, constructive suggestions, maybe not necessarily criticism, but really be open to it. You can't have a rigid thought process of I'm right, you're wrong, even if you're the boss or the CEO. Like that's just a really non-constructive way of thinking, and it's not going to lead to any improvements, and it's going to lead the people who are working for you to be resentful because you're not being open to their suggestions. So you just got to be open and willing to listen and willing to hear what even the little guy has to say, because that little guy may know something or see things in a way that hasn't even occurred to you. So yeah, you just got to be open and willing to listen to people
Maria, I see
like you
why.
are right now with this project.
Thank you so much. I was just about to say, I see why you have liked so many of my posts, and I see why I've been enamored by how much, which brought us to this conversation, because really that is the essence of the mosaic. The mosaic is around this idea of what do people who you would never imagine speaking to have to say, because everybody has something to say. And
Yep.
when in a business or when in an environment you look at all of the aspects of the environment, all the people working in the business, and you ask them what do they think, then what happens is you find a richer interpretation of your business than you ever knew possible, because you're getting outside of the box of the people you always speak to. So
Yep.
I love that. What do you think keeps people from listening?
Well, for example, I really enjoy traveling the world and visiting new places on the planet because you can see and learn firsthand that there is a different way to do things. And you know what? Your way isn't always the right way. Um, yeah, other people have a different way of doing things, and you know what? Maybe you can apply it to your life. Um, so that's the beauty, like you said, of the mosaic of the planet. But also, the more you visit other cultures and other places in the world, you realize the underlying thing is we're really all the same. We want to be loved, we want to have our needs met, we want connection. So there's that paradox of differences, which are awesome to learn about, but the underlying truth is we are one, we are the same.
So with that, let me just go back. I want to push you a little bit, because it would seem like the easiest thing in the world, what I found in the work that I've done with people, is we all want the same basic three things. We want to be loved and accepted. We want to be listened to and heard. We want to be acknowledged and validated for what we believe. In my 65 years of life, no one's ever said to me, Danny, I want you to agree with me. Because when I've been able to do those things with people, they really are okay. They know I have my own belief systems. They
Yeah.
know my belief systems can change in a moment if I see a better belief system, but they've never
Yeah.
said to me, you must believe with me. But in the world we're living in, especially in America right now, it feels like there is a conflict, there's a battle of you need to believe like I believe, or we can't go against the people in our silo who believe like this, even if we feel like they're doing something wrong. And it doesn't matter which political party you're with. The people who follow Trump will follow Trump with and let him do. He's done amazingly good things, and he's done some amazingly terrible things, but they don't
Yeah.
stand up to the amazing terrible things and say we can't do this anymore. And the other party in America will seems like every time he turns a corner, they have a bat swinging for his head, and
Yeah.
they don't give the dog a bone to say, look, you have done something good. They don't
Yeah.
even, right, and nobody wants to think that they haven't done anything good and be criticized for everything they've done. So
Exactly.
it raises the desire to fight back.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's so hard for us to accept other people and just listen to them?
It's really being stuck in the ego mindset and the external world, the illusion, or as the Buddhists would say, Maya, um, just being stubborn and stuck in that zone really forces people to be defensive and wanting to keep that ego, that illusion, but once we do the inner work, we realize that it is an illusion, and you know we have more in common than we think we do.
Yeah,
So by letting that guard down and seeing our commonalities, that's really the only way we can bring unity. But otherwise, if we're stuck in that illusion, it's just gonna lead to more anger and stubbornness and the need to defend, yeah, and seeing the other as different.
yeah. You've spoken of inner work, and for you and me, those are words that resonate with our soul so easily, because we've both been involved in doing that. But for some people listening, they might not know what that work means. What does inner work mean to you? What does doing the inner work mean to you?
Yeah. Well, it starts by diving deep inside. You know, Meditation. Even if you do like 2 or 3 minutes to start off with, just sit with yourself and don't don't reach for distractions. Don't reach for the TV. Don't reach for internet. Don't reach for Facebook. Just sit with yourself with no external distractions, and then gradually build that up. Sit longer with yourself, and that's when you can tap into that inner higher consciousness that we talked about earlier. And then you go further and further and deeper into it, and that's when you realize that, okay, maybe the way I've been doing things isn't helping. You'll tap into your inner wisdom when you sit with yourself, and it takes a lot of work and years of it. We're all works in progress, but it's so worth it.
So would it be fair to say, because some of my questions to you have been about listening and inner work, would it be fair to say that when we shut down some of the noises that we occupy ourselves with and just
Yeah.
become quiet, that we then come to a place where we're actually able to hear something within us that is speaking to us, because we're not filling it with noise and space and activity and things like that, and that
Yes,
in that quiet we start to listen, and
absolutely.
in that listening to ourselves, a work starts to develop within us where we are eager to hear more of what ourself is saying to ourselves, because
Yes,
it's so enjoyable to hear that voice from deep within inside of ourselves. Would that be fair to say, is what you're saying?
absolutely. And we're so often taught in our conditioning and upbringing to silence that inner voice, you know, like a child, like, oh, I really want to pursue art. Oh no, you know, art's not a good field of study. What are you need something to fall back on. You need, something that's going to make you money. Like, so a lot of the time we're taught to silence that voice, but really that inner voice is what is the way to guide us.
Yeah.
But we need to listen to that more, and like you said, like, just tap into that.
So I told you I suck at the lightning round, right? Because we're not moving there. But it's okay. This is what I like in it.
All good.
It's all good. Um, I know both of these are really important. What's more important for you right now in this time of your life? Is it more important for you to be able to stand up and speak your voice and be heard? Or is it more important for you to create an environment where other people can speak what they have to say and you
Mm.
listen to them?
Well, I think they're both important and they come in steps. So you first have to listen to your own voice, the whole put your oxygen mask on yourself first before you can help others, or that other metaphor of you can't pour from an empty cup. So you got to listen to your own voice first, and then using the power from listening to your voice, you can help others listen to their voices as well. So
So,
one
so
comes
I,
before the other.
I love that you took listening to your own voice in there. Really, my question was, do you think it's more important for you to stand up and have the platform for you to speak your voice, which implies that you've listened to your own voice, or to create a platform for other people to be able to speak and that you're able to listen to what other people are saying?
Yeah, I would
You know,
rather other people be able to listen to their own voices because, you know, I've given speeches and spoken in public before, but I think ultimately what's gonna help humanity is other people to find their own voices.
so it's so interesting to me because in part of this whole creation of this series that I'm doing, my intention was to create a platform for people to be able to speak their voice. And yet, the data that I'm getting back from the questions that I'm asking is really fascinating to me because a huge majority of people, and it may just be because it's the people that are drawn to to answering me, the huge majority of the people are saying, I think it's more important for me to create a platform for other people to have their voices heard than for me
Yep.
to speak their voice. And the whole premise of this was to give people a chance to speak their voice. And those people
Yeah.
are all wanting to create platforms for people to be heard rather than for
Yeah.
them to speak. So it's just interesting to see what happens when we go into the world with a thought and allow that thought to be shaped by the reality of what other people want. So
That's really fascinating that you're getting that level of response.
yeah,
That's actually really promising. I'm happy to hear that.
thank you. Yeah, it is. It's. Do you feel like you fit into the world, or have you always felt you're a little different?
Well, growing up, I felt different, but I tried so hard to fit in. That's what made my adolescent years really tough on me. Um, I had these hopes and dreams, but it didn't seem to fit in with the mainstream. So I was just like, life's tough. But when you get to the point where you just don't care, like, you know, screw this, I'm gonna do my thing. Let my freak flag fly. you know, that's when you realize that other people's opinions don't matter, and you know everyone should be shining their own unique talents and gifts and giving that to the world. So it doesn't matter. It's a good thing if you don't fit in, because you're able to find your own unique voice a little easier.
Again, this is another data point that I've been interested in the accumulation of knowledge by just listening to people. I've been amazed at how many people feel different in the world and have always felt different and feel like they don't quite fit in. And yet we live in a world which tries to box us into certain silos.
Yeah.
What do you believe? Who are you? What type of person are you? A conservative? Or even my questions are sort of box us in, right? And why do you think there's such a desire to take people from people who feel different to make people fit in?
Yeah, it's I guess it's a natural human characteristic to want to categorize things and you know put things in a paradigm so that we can understand it better. But um, you know, not everybody fits into the exact same paradigm. So yeah, that's why you have to be fully present, in the present moment, not think about the past and the paradigms you've been conditioned to believe, or, worry about the future, or be anxious about it, but stay present, really give people your time when you spend time with them, and just realize that they are who they are uniquely, and you don't have to fit them into any category. And that's perfectly fine. That's what makes our universe so beautiful.
Does Nate does the does this human desire to fit in, is it replicated in nature, that in the world that you see in nature? Like
Um,
you have an incredibly unique perspective that you can bring to this series of shows because
yeah.
of the work that you do with the environment and the plant world and the tree. Do you see that same thing happening in the world that is not the animal world?
Yes and no. So, for example, like a wolf pack will have your typical type of behavior. A herd of elk will have a typical type of behavior, um, stuff like that. But I personally work with the desert tortoise population, the Mojave desert tortoise population here in the desert, and there are certain behaviors we expect, or the types of habitats we expect to find tortoises in. But then, one will throw us off, like be found up on a mountaintop or a hilltop somewhere. And we're like, wait a second, they don't really like hilltops. They like washes, So one will throw us off, kind of thing. So it's just important to not, to know what to expect, but then also know that there could be, I've heard the term black swans, like the unusual um, uh, animals or species or specimens that don't fit into that category. So yeah, just be prepared that there will be some outliers that don't fit into the categories that you expect. So
I love this, and I'm going to deviate because of your expertise. Excuse me.
it's okay.
One of the things that I'm finding really interesting in the work that I'm doing is this idea of swarm consciousness, of watching the way birds fly, where it looks like there's a leader, but they actually don't have leadership. They have a collective mind that allows them to move in synchronicity with each other. Watching
Yeah.
the way fish swim, which it happens in that same exact way.
Yeah.
And there are people that are doing some work that I'm working with around whether the human mind is possible and capable of operating in a swarm mentality,
Yeah.
and what would happen if we swarmed together rather than voted or used other ways of making decisions. What would happen if we came together as a collective mind and made decisions? And they're finding in the predictive analysis work that they're doing for companies have certifiable result moments. For instance, who's going to win the Kentucky Derby, or who's going to win the Academy Awards, or those types of things. They're finding their predictive analysis tool of swarming people together is way higher than even experts in the field's predictions of what would happen. I'm wondering if you see any of that in the work that you do. Do you see any swarm consciousness or collective mind in the environments that you work in?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. Like, 4 years ago, I was up in Svalbard, in the Arctic, the high Arctic of Norway, and I was so impressed by this one bird called the Arctic tern. It has the longest migration route of any bird on the planet. It migrates all the way from the North Pole to the South Pole.
Wow.
Um, yeah, in during the summer South Pole, and then when it's summer in the North Pole, it migrates back up. So it literally crosses the whole planet to migrate. Um, so I really think the key is just surrendering. You know, surrendering to higher intelligence, because once you have your intention and you know exactly what you need to do, once you surrender, that higher consciousness will take over.
Love it. And it would seem like that's where your blend of spirituality and science would be a real contribution to
Yes.
the work that you're doing, and can actually lead science of what you're doing in a different direction.
Yes.
Perhaps. Interesting.
I hope so.
Yeah. I think I know the answer to this, but I'm be interested to hear your answer. Do you
Sure.
operate from your head or your heart?
Oh, absolutely, my heart. I mean, the head is necessary, for your basic tasks, like logical tasks, like paying your taxes and you know, um, writing a field report for work, for example. That. But ultimately, just operating from your heart, because your heart really knows where it's at. Because as I used the example earlier, a child wants to be an artist, but his head, or whatever his parents tell him in his head,
Yeah.
says that, oh, well, that's not going to make any money, whatever, whatever. So then what you end up doing by following your head instead of your heart is getting a job you don't like, making money and just feeling no satisfaction. So ultimately, the true wisdom comes from the heart.
Beautiful. What a beautiful time together this has been, and what a great chance to get to know you this has been. I so appreciate it. You've said a lot and shared a lot of wisdom with us today. If you had 2 minutes to say to the world something that you would always have wanted to say, maybe you've never said, maybe have said over and over again, but want to say again, what would you like to say to the world?
Short-term gain is not worth long-term fulfillment. So, for example, exploiting the planet to get that extra bit of money is just not worth it, and it's not going to lead to long-term fulfillment. Or, not doing your disciplined practice just to have fun for a short time isn't going to lead to long-term fulfillment. So, think in the long term, and you'll be a lot happier.
Well, beautiful, beautiful. I haven't ever heard that said so succinctly and beautifully before. So beautiful. I love the way your mind thinks.
Thank you.
In the world that we live in now, we're going through a lot of big upheavals. It was just a few years ago that we had the Me Too movement, and it's still very present. We then had a pandemic that has, whether you believe in it or not, has sidelined a whole world of people, and it's put pause into the world in every nation in the world. And we also are now starting to see, over the past few months, a upheaval of a Black Lives Matter movement, where people of color are starting to say we matter. Um, all of those movements have been taken by other people who want to make benefit from those movements and sort of sway the cause a little bit in their direction. But at the heart of the movement still is, we haven't treated people of color very well. We haven't treated women very well. We haven't treated our planet very well.
Yeah.
What do you think our planet is trying to say something to us?
Oh, absolutely. you know nature and the universe are giving us a just sounding an alarm call. Like, we cannot continue the way we've been going, exploiting resources, exploiting people. We cannot continue business as usual. We need to do drastic changes, and those changes start from within. So once we change from within, then it'll radiate. Like, when you toss a little pebble into a pond, it leaves those concentric circles that go out.
Yes.
The same thing. Once you start changing internally, you're just going to radiate that out. So yeah, the universe is just telling us, this is it. We can't continue as we've been going. It's time for a drastic change. And so it's almost as though this time to go inward from the lockdowns is a gift. It's like, now's the time to do the work.
Yeah.
We can't wait any longer. So this
It's
is this
I'm
pandemic's turned out to be a gift as far as I'm concerned.
it's really interesting because if you follow the movements, they're each, just like the plant life gives breath to the animal kingdom, and the animal kingdom gives breath to the plant life. And there's a balance between the exchange of what we waste is what the other needs. It
Yes.
almost seems like the world itself is saying that to us now, that we are being given these massive upheavals to allow us to really rethink the how we're treating everything in our lives, from the
Yes.
people to the planet, and we're being given a pause in our life to actually say we can't go out and do what we normally do. So if we can't go
Exactly.
outside, go inside and
Yes.
experience what that experience is like. If people want to get in touch with you, I don't even know if you want them to get in touch with you, but if people want to get in touch with
Um,
you to have more dialogue or to hire you or to do
yeah.
work together, how
Um,
would they reach you?
I can leave my social media contacts behind and maybe an email address. And yeah, I'm really happy to connect with people if they want to take this conversation further, because this is my passion, and this is what I feel is my mission to do. So yeah, anybody feel free. I'd
I,
love to chat.
I love that. And I would love to lob a ball over the net for you to just think about, not necessarily respond right now,
Thank
but
you.
that in the process of you doing what you do, start to have some conversations with people and record
Yes.
those conversations. And if you
Yeah.
want, share them with me, and we will put them on our platform of 50 conversations, which hopefully will be thousands and thousands of conversations by many, many different people.
Yeah.
And we can share those with people to see a world that they don't see before.
Yep.
Um,
That's perfect. That's just so wonderful. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for providing this platform. This is really a wonderful thing you're doing.
Absolutely. And even if it's not that you don't contribute to mine, contribute to yours, because one of the things that I realized is in doing this that strangers in the quickest moments become friends when we just allow them the space to share who they are with us. We're no longer
Absolutely.
strangers.
And also, it really gets you to realize, because society tends to look at, for example, people with, you know, low-paying jobs, such as, I don't know, janitors, for example, that they're of a lower class or whatever. But you know what? When you actually sit down and talk to that janitor, they've seen things that you could never have imagined in your life, and they just have so much to offer. So just really sitting down and connecting, you think like every single person on this planet has something to offer and
Yeah,
something to learn from.
yeah.
So thank you.
I spoken right out of the mosaic, so I appreciate that. Maria, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
For
That was
those,
such a pleasure. Thank you.
it's my honor. It's a pleasure for me. For those people who are listening and like this show, please share it. The way things grow in the world is when people find something they like and share it with other people that they like. And so if you don't feel to do it, please don't do it. But if you do feel to grow these conversations, if you felt inspired by my conversation with Maria and want to share that, please share it with your friends, because what a beautiful point of view she brings to the world that we live in, and I think one very, very worth sharing with others. So please share it around. And if you know people or if you yourself want to have a conversation, I'm very accessible. Please just reach out and contact me and say, I would love to have a conversation too, because I think what's happening for me is in listening, holding the space to listen to you and to listen to all of the yous that are out there. My platform becomes even bigger because I start to understand what the world is saying to me, and I want to be able to broadcast that out into the world in support of the people that are speaking to me. So please reach out and have a conversation. For our sponsor, The Mosaic, please, if you have an opportunity, go to Amazon or contact me at mosaiconline.com and get a copy of the book. It's on Kindle. It's in hard copy. I think you would enjoy it, and I think it would if you enjoy these conversations. It's the thing that inspired these conversations. So I want to thank you so much for listening. I want
Thank
to thank you for
you.
being here. Maria, before we go, do you have one last thing you want to say to share with people?
Yeah, just get out of your head into your heart, do the inner work, and make the world a better place. That's it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you again. Until next stranger comes into our lives, um, don't be strangers. Take a chance to reach out to someone you don't know and just ask them how they're doing, with no desire to fix them, change them, help them, correct them, but just to listen to them. And I think you'll find that you are so enriched by the experience of hearing how another person is enjoy that time together. Until that time, don't be strangers, be friends with each other. Let's come together and build a world that we want to live in. And a world of friends is a different world than a world of strangers.
Yes.
So make strangers into friends. Thank you so much. Ciao.